Very good evening to one and all present here. Let me extend all of you a very happy Vaishaki and Bihu. I welcome all of you to this program-specific webinar. In today's session, we have two accomplished guests who would share their experiences and clarify your doubts related to program design, delivery, career track, electives, and clubs and committees on campus. Let me introduce Professor Nikhil Rastogi, Area Chair, Finance and Accounting at IMT Hyderabad. Professor Nikhil Rastogi is the Area Chairperson of Finance and a Professor of Finance and Accounting. He has cumulative experience of more than 2 decades. He has been into academics for last 18 years and has completed his PhD in the area of market microstructure. He teaches courses in the area of security analysis, investment banking, financial statement analysis, and corporate finance. We are privileged to have Mr. Jogendra Singh, President Finance, Hero Corporate Services Private Limited. Mr. Singh is a senior corporate practitioner and has very rich experience in the world of finance. I request Professor Nikhil Rastogi to take over the proceedings of the webinar. I request all the participants to please post their questions in the chat window, which will be answered by the guests in the last 15 minutes of the session. Over to you, sir.
Okay, thank you, Anirban, and welcome to everyone. And I welcome Mr. Jogendra Singh to the session as well. So this is a webinar on PGDM Financial Management Program. And following would be the flow of the webinar. So initially, we'll talk about the program goals as well as the program structure. This would be followed by some discussion on electives, the placements related to job profile and the companies which have visited campus in the past, the non-academic engagements that students engage in, right? And I'll leave the floor after this to Mr. Jogendra Singh to talk about career opportunities in finance. And lastly, we'll have some time for Q&A. As Anirban said, you can post it in the chat window. Okay. So as far as the program is concerned, though it is named PGDM Financial Management, but we are trying to provide a wholesome education, which is also focusing on character building, leadership skills building, providing exposure to ethics and giving a global perspective to students. So the focus of the program is trying to develop the individual in toto and thereby build both the functional knowledge as well as the ability to deliver in industry. So these are the 6 program goals that we wish to achieve by the end of the program, which focuses not just, as I said, on functional, but also leadership, communication, creativity, and ethical and global perspective. To try and execute and achieve these program goals, our program structure is divided into 2 major parts, which is first year and second year of the program. In the first year of the program, we have 3 terms, each of which is close to 4 months. And this, after a year, we have what we call as a summer term. I'll talk more about the summer term just in a brief while. And post the summer term, we have the second year, which again consists of 3 terms. So broadly, in your mind, we have this 2-year program, which we are across 2 years, we have 6 terms and 1 summer term. Okay, what happens as far as the first year of the program is concerned? As I said, the program goal is not just to make you proficient in finance, but also in other disciplines of management. So the first year is trying to focus on all the areas of management and not just finance. So we have in the first year a total of 20 core courses, which are distributed across finance, marketing, operations, human resources, analytics, and strategy. We feel this is the building block for a career in management in particular. In the first year, we are also, along with these core courses, we are also looking at expanding the skill set of the students. So we have 3 workshops in each of the 3 terms of the first year. The workshop includes subjects like advanced Excel, capital markets, design thinking, amongst others. Along with that, we are also looking at providing experiential learning to students, and that is through what we call as a global immersion, social immersion, and psychometric assessment. In global immersion, students are exposed to faculties as well as their own counterparts in other B schools through what we call as a global immersion program. They engage with the faculty from other institutes. They also have a person who is doing MBA in other institute outside India, and jointly they're working on a project. Right? In social immersion, the student is made aware of the various social dimensions and the social perspectives of management. And these both are experiential. That is, it's not just classroom based. You are actually interacting and working to learn this. In psychometric assessment, the student is understanding his own personality, how he or she is perceived by their peers, and accordingly they get a sense of what are their strengths and what are their weaknesses. So by the end of the first year, the student is fully conversant with the core areas of management, and at the same time they have built skill set in areas which are quite useful at place of work. At the end of first year, which is 3 terms, we have what we call as a summer term. Now this summer term, a wide variety of options are being given to students. The most important thing in the summer term is what we call as summer internship in a company. Now this is a 12-week period wherein student is working in a company. However, the student is being supervised jointly by faculty as well as the industry guide. So during this summer internship, faculties are also visiting the place of work to ensure that the project which is being executed is given the required seriousness. And this joint guidance from both the theory and practice helps the student to achieve internship goals in terms of practical learning. Okay, this is one of the internship projects which student can do. However, there might be students who are more academically inclined or want to do academic research. So they could choose alternatively to do what we call as management thesis and seminar. So just to describe again, the summer term has 3 options. One, the major one, which all of you are familiar with, internship, where you go in a company, but alternatively, you could stay back and work under a faculty on an academic research project, right? So it could be aligned to your areas of interest and your areas in which you seek to develop further. That is the second option. The third option is that the student can undergo a student exchange program where the students are visiting foreign universities, spending around 3 to 4 months doing courses related to their area of interest and getting credits for the same. So this is what is the summer term. Okay. After this, the students come back and we start the second year. Now, during the summer term, these are some of the companies which have offered internships in areas which are finance and also a mix of finance and marketing, finance and operations, or finance and analytics. Okay, so let's move to the area or the second term wherein the student is also exposed to the elective courses. In the second year of the program, we initially have few core courses in the areas of general management, which is strategy, ethics, sustainability, which is quite a current topic, and legal aspects of business. Apart from this, second year of the program is a time of undertaking extensive electives in the chosen area by the student. Now, as far as PGDM Finance is concerned, the student has an option to choose 12 electives in the area, but these electives can be from across all the areas of management, right? When PGDM Finance student is coming to the program, they are being advised to take 4 necessary electives, which we call as program electives. Apart from these 4, to major in finance, they need to take 2 more. So that makes it 6, right? The 6 remaining electives, they can choose from any area of management. So to do a major, you need to take 6 electives. So having chosen 6 electives in finance, the remaining 6 you can take in any other area. If you choose, let's say, analytics as the second area, so you will have a dual major in finance as well as analytics. Alternatively, you could look at choosing 2 electives in, let's say, operations, 2 electives in marketing, 2 electives in analytics. So it's more like a cafeteria approach where you decide what you would like to pursue, which line of courses you would like to pursue. However, we advise the student to take few electives, which is, let's say we said 4, which are specifically something a finance student would need. But more or less, the student can also decide on what other electives they need to pursue. Okay. At the end of the second year, we are also having, or during the second year, we are also having something called as management project. As far as electives are concerned, right, we have more than 65 to 70 electives across different areas of management. On this slide, I have just put in the 12 electives which we have, or 12, 13 electives which we have in the area of finance. But the student, as I discussed in the previous slide, is free to take 6 more electives from different areas, right? So there's a lot of freedom. It's what we call as a cafeteria approach to the management education. Okay. As far as the profiles in finance are concerned, the past few years, what kind of profiles which we have seen. So this slide is basically talking about that, right? So a lot of profiles have been around the roles of business analyst, financial analyst, valuation analyst, financial due diligence. So to sum it in a few words, these profiles are basically assuming good knowledge of finance, accounting, financial statements, and the exposure that we provide through electives. The other profiles that we have in finance are what we call as credit underwriting, which basically is work done at banks, NBFCs, and financial services company. We also have rating agencies coming to the campus, and they offer a profile which is called as rating analyst. Then we have investment banks and consulting companies, which are offering profiles related to credit risk and industry and domain. Okay? So these are core finance profile. But as I said, a student in PGDM financial management program is also could also major in another area, right? So in the past, students here have also looked at a profile which is a mix of finance and other areas, right? So for example, let's talk about a student who has specialized in finance as well as operations, right? So the profiles that have come in and which students have pursued could relate to banking operations, right? Could relate to trading operations in an investment bank. So it is a mix of both finance as well as operations. As far as marketing is concerned, finance and marketing, the profiles assumes knowledge of both finance and marketing, and they are in the area of wealth management as well as relationship management. And the third, which is finance plus analytics, we had profiles called financial analytics and risk management, where the student is supposed to know both finance and the has good expertise in the analytical tools and the statistical tools, right? So this is a slide which is presenting finance plus other profiles. The last slide was exclusively for finance. So the message here that we are finally giving is that though the name is PGDM Financial Management, the exposure each student is getting is extensive and across different areas of management. Student could choose to go into a core finance, or they could try and diversify themselves by choosing a mix between finance and other disciplines of management. So we're further trying to extend their specialty in terms of different areas. Okay, now this is as far as the profiles are concerned. The companies which have visited in the past few years are on this slide. And as you will see, basically on the finance side, the role is hovering more around the analyst domain, right? But as I told you about profiles which are a mix. So we have a company, let's say Spot Flock, which is looking at finance plus analytics, right? So this is that profile. If you talk about companies like Societe Generale, they have trading operations profile, which is a mix of finance as well as operations, while pure investment banking profile is what is coming from Goldman Sachs, right? Okay, so this is as far as the course structure, the placement, the electives are concerned, right? Coming to the other part where the student is also getting exposure, we believe that it is through the interaction with the corporate leaders or through the functional experts that the student is imbibing the right knowledge and right skill set. So we here try to engage students through different mediums like panel discussions and conclaves, so that they interact with the industry people and get the real-time awareness of the industry skill set needed, right? As far as the clubs are concerned, we have close to more than 10 clubs across different areas. But as far as finance is concerned, as I said, student is free to move across clubs. It's not just finance. So Phoenicia is the finance club of IMT Hyderabad. And this slide is actually providing some pictures of what all happens in this. So we have an in-house magazine, which is trying to look at different innovations which have happened recently in the area of finance, and also the different games which are executed so as to pass on finance knowledge to the wide fraternity. Right? So this is the finance club. So as far as the part of IMT Hyderabad and the program structure, electives, this is what I had to say. We'll take questions in the end. Now I will request Mr. Joginder Singh, who is from Hero Corporate Services, to talk about the career opportunities in finance. I leave the floor to him. It's all yours, Mr. Joginder Singh.
Thank you, Mr. Rastogi, and thank you very much for giving me this opportunity for interacting with students. Always my passion to truly interact with students. And I've been to IMT Hyderabad campus a few times, and I hope there would be a time very soon when I could physically visit the campus and talk to students one-on-one, face-to-face in a physical world. But anyway, we are living in the reality of current times, where you have to be hybrid, and this has also shown us what technology can do. And this could be the theme of what I'm going to discuss today, especially in today's context in finance. What's happening? I was in last 2 days actually. I was in Mumbai, and I was attending a finance transformation summit, where we had some wonderful leaders from CFO of Amazon to CFO of Accenture to CFO of Blue Dart and a whole lot, and there were for one day I was chairing the session, and the kind of topics we were discussing were completely different, very, very varied kind of topics from what's happening. So a very marked difference that I saw, especially now, that we were less technical, so to say, in terms of finance technicalities. So there used to be a time when during these kind of conferences, we would talk about, accounting standards or certain treatments of certain, transactions, or I would talk about, maybe some taxation and the impact of taxation, what happens on the business. Today, we were going beyond those technical topics, and we were talking, instead of finance, we were focusing on business topics. So this is exactly, I would like to truly say that our role in finance has changed from being only and only a finance role to a business role. So which is a very major change, you will have to see, and students especially would have to really talk about it. So today it is very important for all students to understand that future of finance, how does it look like, future of finance. And future, I always say, when is the future? Future is now here. So future has already arrived, so to say. So we'll have to understand what are the kind of skills which are required to be attained by these students so that they can match with the times and go ahead of the times. So let's talk about, when I talk about tech and I talk about a factory shop floor. In factory shop floor, the tech had already come in somewhere in 50s, 60s, 70s or so, somewhere around that time, even the robots started, coming in a very raw form. And by the time of 80s and 90s, very sophisticated robots were already working on the shop floors. And in 1990s, then we talked about Industry 4.0. And when we said Industry 4.0, which means primarily that we were talking about putting a lot of technology on the industry shop floor in their operations and how the operations are being controlled as far as shop floors are concerned in a factory environment. And if I compare that to what happened in the finance, on the factory vis-a-vis what happened in the finance, our adoption, the finance area, the adoption of technology was quite slow. I give our own example. In late 90s, I was working for Hero Cycle at that point in time, and we were the first company to implement SAP, which was an ERP, and we were very happy that we are doing something great, that we are implementing the first ERP in the state of Punjab, actually. However, now if I really look back and see what we did in maybe about 10 years after we implemented SAP, what we did was pretty basic in the sense, and we did not expand it to the extent that we could really get the full potential of the ERP like SAP, So this is something that has started dawning upon us as finance professionals in last, let's say, about 6, 7, 8 years, that we have to talk about technology, we have to implement technology. We were talking about finance transformation, technology transformation in finance. And especially in last 2 years, when the pandemic came, then it really accentuated and it changed the picture dramatically. And we had to use the power of technology, and that was the only way we could survive to start with. And then we realized that we cannot only survive, we can even thrive with this. So there was a lot of disruption which took place. We all already say that we live in a Vuca world. So what is a Vuca world? A Vuca world is, where there's a lot of volatility in the working place, in business world. And of course, we can see the kind of volatility that we see all around us. Uncertainty, which is, again, you do not have a very set pattern of anything. So you're dealing with uncertainty, and you have to really understand how to deal with uncertainty. You have to deal with complexity. And then there is a huge amount of ambiguity. So that's what makes, what we call a Vuca world. And Vuca world has been there, and we have to really think and talk about, what do we do in this Vuca world, and how do we tackle this. So one of the mantra to moksha, as I say, was absolutely, technology. And I have seen this, discussed this on many business forums within our companies, outside our companies, on CFO forums, etc. If I go back and look back, in April 2020, that was the time when we were supposed to put our annual operating plans in operation. So in a business world, what we do is, we make annual operating plans, or we call them AOP, or budgets, as we say, as a very popular name. We normally work back for about 3 to 4 months, discuss, research, debate, negotiate, and finally, somewhere before March, we put our AOPs in place so that we can start working on that AOP, annual operating plan, from 1st of April, which is the financial year. And I go back in time and see what did my AOP look like, on 1st of April 2020. I said this is more of a tragedy than truly a strategy, right? So I have to really see how we can be more agile. How can we make sure that I am not talking about AOP for a year, but I'm talking about probably at that point in time, month to month or week to week. And going forward, I see the kind of situation that I see today, and going forward, our plans are not going to be the annual plans. We'll have to do more like a rolling plans, and then on a, maybe quarterly basis or a monthly basis, we keep reviewing our plans. But at that point in time, of course, we adopted a whole lot of technology to stay afloat. There was a very good study that was done by Bain, and that was done in 2019. This was prior to pandemic, actually speaking, and there were about 6,400 odd companies were surveyed. And in that particular study, what they try to do, they try to look at what happened to these companies in 2008 when there was a financial crisis, and what happened to these companies 10 years later. They looked at what was the behavior of the companies in 2008 when the financial crisis took place. How did they approach? And what is the impact of that approach 10 years later? And 10 years is good enough a time to really see that all the strategy that you put in place or capex that you put in place can bear fruits. And this was very, very interesting. They found that there were about a few companies, only about 200 odd companies out of that sample, which grew at the CAGR of 15%. And most others grew at a CAGR of about 5%, compounded annual growth rate. So what makes these companies different than the laggards, if I can call them laggards? What these companies tried to do was they tried to take bold steps. They tried to see these hard times as also opportunity, and see what can they do, what can they invest in new technology, in new areas of business, in new geographies, so that some years later, when things go better, they can bear the fruits. And those were the companies which took bold steps, did some investments, and they bore the fruits while they grew at the rate of 15%. So therefore, it is very important that we stay agile while these kind of issues, these kind of issues came up, or these kind of hard times came up. So there is an opportunity in every adversity, as we say, and it would be shameful if we do not take advantage of the opportunity that the pandemic presented to us. To give you a very simple example, a very simple example, the kind of travel that we were doing earlier. We said that we will cut down our travel by half. And travel is, in some companies was a very big ticket item of expense. And we said at least 50% of the time, we should be working on a technology platform, unless there is an interaction with a customer, or there is a site inspection kind of a thing where your physical presence is needed. We will try and see that we stay on our basis and discuss on these kind of tech platforms. After the pandemic has, let's say, over, we don't know whether it is completely over or not, but it has subsided for sure. We are making sure that we continue with that strategy so that it gives us a very lasting benefit. Now, coming back on, my major theme that I was talking about, tech. McKinsey also did a study, and they came up with four major trends, that they talked about. So what four trends they were talking about was that there is more connectivity. So if I talk about connectivity, in 2019, when this survey was done, or this study was done, at that point in time, there were 32 billion connected machines in the world. So just think about the scale. For every single human being, there are 4 machines, which are connected in that sense. So what can we do with this kind of connectivity around us? So this can give rise to a completely new area of business model. We sometimes used to say BAU, or business as usual. So from BAU, we are moving to DAU, disruption as usual. So disruption has truly become a very usual thing, and you see this today, day in and day out. Every established business is being challenged by a startup, especially in the fintech area, the fintech world. There are the kind of disruptions which are coming are phenomenal. They are very agile. They have a huge amount of speed. So when you have connectivity, the second thing that happened was, that you could do a huge amount of automation. So unprecedented automation is taking place. And third trend, with this unprecedented automation, the impact of that is the transaction costs are getting very lower. One reason of this is very simple, that the middle layer is disappearing, completely. And if I talk about, things like blockchain, once this is being implemented, as of now, blockchain, we are looking at blockchain only in terms of cryptos. However, there are huge amount of use cases, which can be there in blockchain. So once that comes, which has, a distributed ledger. So this is a self-audit kind of a thing, very transparent thing where you can trace any transaction to the origin. So therefore, there would be no middle layer, which would be required for doing the business. So this would result into lower transaction costs. And fourth and very important thing is there is a fundamental societal shift. So customer experience is becoming much more important, than any other kind of a thing. So therefore today, if I talk about technological progress and innovation, these are truly the linchpins of fintech development, and they will continue to drive disruptive business models, especially in the financial services I'm talking about. So some of these areas, probably some technologies, especially which will drive the fintech development and shape the competitive landscape of finance over the next decade or so. And it has already started, not something which is going to come in future. This has already started even today. So I thought, this would be a good idea to discuss this with students while you are preparing yourself for the real world, for the business world. So make sure you have a checkbox how many of these skills you can really adopt. So one is artificial intelligence. And artificial intelligence is absolutely going to drive a massive value creation. And this with other technologies, when I talk about analytics, so we were at what I call descriptive analytics. So descriptive analytics is, something like I lost, 1 crore in this month. So this is descriptive analysis. And then you go to the next level, and then it talks about descriptive, then it talks about what are the components of why did you lose. And third layer would be predictive analysis. And when I talk about predictive analysis, I mean, if you lose at this rate, then by the year end, you will lose so much. So that becomes a predictive analysis. And now the most important item where artificial intelligence would really play a very great part would be prescriptive analytics. And when I talk about prescriptive analytics, I'm talking about what can I do to make sure that I either reduce the impact of this loss, or I do something so that I can make up this loss. So that will be so what I'm talking about is, we in the finance world have always been talking about hindsight. Hindsight is, when the things have already taken place. So when I make the balance sheet, the transaction has already taken place. And if transaction has already taken place, I cannot impact the business outcome. So I have to really move to a position where I can impact a business outcome in a real-time scenario. So from hindsight, I'll have to move to foresight. And this is absolutely where artificial intelligence can work a lot. The other area where I have found a lot of impact of artificial intelligence is cyber risk management. Primarily what artificial intelligence is doing, it's trying to find patterns out of a big data, let's say. And with the patterns, it's making certain predictions, or it's making certain deductions or insights. It's giving that this is where you could have a risk, or this is where you could you have to really pay attention. So artificial intelligence is absolutely one area. And when I'm talking about artificial intelligence, I'm also putting in this the machine learning, etc. The other thing which is going to disrupt financial world in a big way, and again, as I say, this has already started, is blockchain. So we have an established financial protocol. We say maker checker concept, 4I principle, segregation of duties. I'm trying to see in future, and I see where and what would be the future of these kind of controls that I'm talking about. If things are very, very transparent, and you are doing a transaction in a distributed ledger, which is completely audit, for which complete audit trail is available, then where is the need for any kind of a maker checker concept, or etc. So there are I don't know right now, but these are the areas we'll have to really think about, talk about. There will be a lot of debate and discussion around these areas. Of course, till this comes, we have to pay huge attention to these areas. However, I see then in the next 5 to 10 years, blockchain would be a very, very important part of the financial world. And when it happens, then you have to really see the impact it will have on the finance labor. And when I say finance labor, I'm including myself as a finance labor in that sense. So everybody, all the finance workers. Even today, what is happening is the kind of technologies we call them RPA or robotic process automation. You have the physical worker and a digital worker, which is RPA working simultaneously. And digital worker will make no mistakes or less mistakes. Of course, you will have to be very, very certain that digital workers, would work, or RPAs would work with a very defined set of rules. So you cannot change the rules. If you change the rules, it will fail. So, but if you're working within those rules, then these digital workers would be far higher, efficient and effective. So you have to really see what happens to the mundane jobs or what happens to the lower strata of jobs. And this might vanish. And this is not something which we have to be fearful about. Sometimes it is good to be excited about this, that you have been given a chance to move up the value chain, skill yourself so that you can move from the transactional bottom line to insights, giving, which is at the top of the pyramid, so to say. And that is the reason why people like, so we have people like, data analytics, kind of people in our teams today. So we have engineers on our teams today. A few years ago, we could not even think about, that a finance department will have some engineers on their, as their workers. But this is happening. Even in our own companies, we do have engineers, especially the data analytics, people who are working within our departments, serving the finance department. So blockchain is second one. And then you have the cloud computing, which comes, and cloud computing will primarily liberate a lot of financial services players, from a lot of protocols that we talk about. Then fourth would be IoT. And IoT, Internet of Things, as I said, will drive a new era of trust in finance and will aid, especially in customer experience. I'll give you an example. We are setting up a museum, a live museum. And this would be one of the best museums in the world, as I said, in the city of Delhi. And you could compare it with any of the Tate Museum in London or MoMA in US, or any of these kind of, top class museums in the world. And we are putting a lot of IoT, in the building itself, which can give us a lot of insights about the behavior of people. And with this, we can serve them better. So this is, again, something which would be important. And fifth, thing which has already again started is, the open source SaaS, which is software as service, and serverless, kind of. So this has lowered the barrier to entry by the people, who have ideas and may not have enough resources. And we always said, this is something I'm talking about. We always said that, treat your ideas royally, for one of them may be a king. So when we talk about finance world, for students, I would always, talk about that. Not only you think about what are you going to, how are you going to work in the finance departments, but you should also be thinking about what you can do as entrepreneurs, as your own startups. Can you do something on that side? And I have been privy to a whole lot of, a finance world. If I talk about, the startup world, and you have very, very young people today coming up, even the one of the very famous ones, the Oyo Room, Ritesh. I have, worked with him a lot. And I have discussed with him multiple times, and he started, at the age of 19. Even today, he's about 26, 27 or so. And what is the kind of empire that he has made? And there are multiple people like that. Even Ola Bhavish is also, a relatively a young person. So think about a startup. Think about your ideas. Of course, take some experience, but have faith in your ideas. Be passionate about it. And if you think this can change the world, or this can disrupt the finance world, or any other kind of area that you think about, give it a very serious thought today. And there are enough mentors which are available. So for students, this is important. You do not think only in terms of serving within the finance department, but creating your own companies and creating your own startups. Also, the latest trend that I have seen, and I'm actually traveling to Ludhiana on Saturday to sign up with one of the companies, what we call this a no-code analytic tool. So no-code analytic tool is something, that finance guys were always very scared, that their IT skills were not very good. So for any small thing, they would go to IT people and, ask them to develop, who had their own priorities and all that. So today,
Hey Mayank,
I have seen.
volume on karo.
So today I have seen this kind of analytic tools, these no-code analytic tools, where you can just write in very simple English. You can just write what do you want. So please analyze last quarter sale and compare it with the similar quarter in 2020. So, and this can come to you completely.
Hello.
Mr. Dhananjay, maybe Mr. Dhananjay, can you please mute? Thank you. So this is again, something that we have to really talk about. So there was another, very important, a very interesting study that World Economic Forum had done, and they talked about top 10 skills for 2025. It was not only for finance, but in general, they talked about what would be the top 10 skills of 2025. And they talked about, 4 buckets where we were talking about problem solving, self-management, working with people, and technology use and development. So they were talking about analytical thinking and innovation in, as one of these skills. They were talking about active learning and learning strategies as the other skill, the complex problem solving, critical thinking and analysis, creativity, cognitive skills, would be one of the biggest draws probably going forward. And then leadership, social influence, of course, then technology use and etc. would come. I think it will be a good idea for for students to just and this is a report which was called Future of Jobs Report 2020, and this was by World Economic Forum. So it will be interesting thing for you to see. And finally, while we talk about technology, we talk about these new trends, etc. It is also very important to understand that we should not ignore the human aspect of the change. While the change comes, sometimes it could be very painful. So there is a fear of the unknown. There could be a fear of job losses. There could be the fear of, there could be anxiety of what's going to happen. So at that point in time, and we have seen this in our, factories, in our, companies, that a human touch would actually be very, very important as part of the change management. And at change management, I always say EQ is more important than IQ. So the emotional quotient that you should, you'll have to see and show to the people around you would absolutely be more important. So what is required is, as far as your people are concerned, you have to upskill them. So that they are away from the routine drudgery and they take, higher jobs. As I said, RPS will take the routine jobs, and then we will just, go ahead on this.
Sir, sorry to interrupt. In the interest of time, can we start the Q&A?
Maybe I'll just take only one more point, and maybe
sure.
one and a half minute only. I was just, going
Okay.
to wrap up on this. So one more thing, that we have to, as students, we should be very clear that there should not be any kind of, fear of failure. When you go on the journey of innovation, tech adoption, and, startups, or, whatever you do in next few years, failures will come, and failures should be your teachers. So failing, to my mind, is more like falling. So what do you do? Like, when you fall down, you just get up and move, ahead. So that's how you should really look at it. So whenever there is a setback, don't sit back. I say step back and bounce back. So that's how, we should be really looking at it. I wish all the students a great success in your lives, and my best wishes for your successful future. Of course, we are now open for any questions.
Thank you, sir. It was indeed a comprehensive look at the technology factor. And I think students will be greatly benefited by pursuing that line of thought. Thank you. So students, we are open to question and answer. So I'm just going to the chat window. Okay. So I am looking at the first question, which talks about, may I take all the electives from finance? Yes, you can take all the electives from finance, while that is a choice that you have, but we would advise you to also look at some other areas, because you need to diversify your interest, because after all, this is a management field that you are pursuing. Right. So I think as far as the operational part is concerned, yes, you can take all the electives from finance.
I would, just add in this,
Sure.
Rastogi sir, that, there was a wonderful ad by Grasim, I suppose. This is the complete man. So this is what they used to, they used as a tagline, the complete man. So while you have come in this, institute, I think it will be very important what Mr. Rastogi is talking about, that you think about grooming your personality on a very integrated overall way, instead of, making it one directional. So I think it will be really important for you to look at, marketing, look at strategy, look at, operational areas as well, so that you groom yourself as an all-round personality.
Yeah, I think that's what we are trying to communicate. So we have a question from Abhishek. He says, how much growth we have in finance as compared to other fields like marketing, HR, operation? So Abhishek, the growth in business fields is present across disciplines, right? But as a faculty, I would advise you to look at your interest. So even the great businessmen have always pursued and advised that line of thinking, that your interest should be aligned. Growth you will find across disciplines, be it marketing, HR, or operations. In finance, as like other disciplines, you have humongous growth opportunities. And add to the previous question that we had, as you diversify your interest, you are having more integrated approach, then the growth will be further reinforced. So to answer your question on the practical level, there is a lot of growth, but assuming you have as much interest in that area to pursue.
So there is a saying, if you do what you love, you don't have to work for a day in life.
Yeah.
Right?
yeah. That really, a lot of great businessmen say that. Okay, we have a question again from Soptic, which is approximately how much it costs to go for student exchange in summer term. So Soptic, we can talk about the international relations committee issues separately, but you are basically in the exchange program. The course is free. It's just the travel and stay that you are looking at, right? And that also is reduced because we have a partner institute. So you don't pay anything as far as the course part is concerned, just the travel and the stay. Okay, then we have Sanya. Sir, I wanted to know the teaching methodology used throughout 6 terms, especially while studying finance. So Sanya, the teaching methodology, we have wide pedagogic tools, right? So the pedagogic tool starts from cases to simulation to usual lectures to spreadsheet modeling. As required based on the course, so is the pedagogy designed. So multiple tools would be used. Sometimes we'll use databases, sometimes we'll use projects and assignments to impart a certain part of the module in a course itself. So it's a varied methodology that we are using. Sanya is again asking, shall we pursue any prerequisite courses before joining? No, Sanya, we have what we call as fundamental or core courses in the first year. So in the first year, we try to build that foundation for the electives. So as far as, let's say, if your question is on finance, then the fundamental courses that are covered in the first year are accounting, corporate finance, management accounting. So these form the basis for the electives that we offer in the second year. But what we would insist is, as Mr. Joginder Singh also said, maybe you can look at the environment in which you exist and try and read a bit more about business and finance in particular, right? So that would make your understanding more in tune with market realities. So that is what I would advise on that point. Sir, will I have the foreign exchange program this year? So Tanvi, your guess is as good as mine. I think the great economists have failed to predict. So what we are saying is, if we have it, then for sure we'll execute that, because we have around 40 foreign partner institutes, and pre-COVID we had a very active foreign exchange program. So I see that is the last question. We'll just wait for a minute or so if you have any further questions. Yeah, we hope so. How is Pgm Fm different from Pgm Core? So in Pgm Financial Management, we are doing more or less the similar, we are offering the similar kind of electives that you have in Pgm Core. But in Pgm Finance, because we have finance as the area, so we have mandated 4 electives, program electives in that area. In PGDM Core, you have we have lot of PGDM Core students which eventually graduate through PGDM these fundamental courses of finance, or the program electives that I mentioned. So what I'm saying is PGDM Finance is trying to push you in a direction in which your interest is, right? But you have as much flexibility as a person who is doing other courses is with regard to the remaining 6 electives. Sanya, I hope I have answered your question. Okay. So in case we don't have any further question, Anirban, I request you to conclude the proceedings then. Okay. Yeah, Anirban?
Sir, I think we are done with the questions. I mean, I don't see any more questions.
Yeah.
So I think you have taken all the questions and you have answered, and there was a lot of clarity in the session. So people had the information which they were looking for. Right. So I'm really thankful to Mr. Jogendra Singh for sparing your valuable time and sharing your very rich corporate experience. It's really a pleasure to have you for this session, and thank you, sir. Our own professor. Whenever he is there in a session means, I mean, there are plenty of knowledge sharing and information which students receive. So really thankful to both of you for sparing your time and exchanging your knowledge with the students. I'm sure the students would have received different informations in terms of finance as a domain and a vertical which they are looking forward to, and this will really help them in taking informed decisions before coming for the program. I'm also thankful to the IT department, especially Karthik, for being all through the session and helping us whenever we required your help. Finally, I'm thankful to all the participants for being here for this particular session. We will be looking forward to such sessions in the coming days. We will have our faculty as well as industry practitioners who will be taking different webinars on different other topics, which you will be notified shortly. Thank you once again to all of you for your time. And we will call it a day, sir. Thank you so much for being here, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Bye. Take care.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
Take
Mr.
care.
Jogendra Singh, for
Thank you, Mr.
wonderful
Story.
insight.
Thanks.